let's make our way into child's pose. And if child's pose isn't your favorite way to get started, please feel free to lay on your back or be seated, whatever makes sense for you. We're just going to do a little centering, breathing before we get moving. So if you are taking child's pose, you can have your toes together and your knees just as wide as you like them. And then forehead can come to the floor, or it could rest on a prop or your hands. Or lately I do quite like hands by the hips. So it just allows the shoulder blades to widen a little bit more. It's a bit more of a kind of introverted, nourishing sort of a version of child's pose. And then if you haven't yet, you can take a couple of breaths, just sort of settling in to the shape, settling into this moment, your practice. Noticing how you're feeling in your body, how your breath is flowing through you, and how you're connecting to the energy of the world around you. So that could be your family, community, ground, certainly the moon, and the land that you are on right now and your relationship with it. So just kind of noticing all those things, all the pieces. Some of you may have already started to feel the ujjayi coming in. And if not, just begin to invite it. So finding that long, smooth inhale and exhale through the nose. Thinking of widening and lifting the ribs on the inhale. Very gently connecting to the core on the exhale. And that's more automatic than anything. You don't need to actively contract. It's sort of happening already. And if you're feeling the call to stay in stillness a little bit longer, please feel free to do that. And if you're noticing that you're wanting to start to move, we can begin to, and I'm gonna do that through cat and cow. So just inhaling into a little bit of the back bend and exhaling to her. So you can do this with your eyes closed, and we're still kind of feeling into the energy of the moment. So moon-wise, we're leaning towards a new moon. We've got a waning moon. There's still some energy from the moon, so it's not too low yet. But you might be starting to feel a little bit of that drawing in towards the self. So just kind of noticing where you're at with that. Eyes can be closed, and maybe we're adding on some circles or side to side motion, or maybe you're feeling like you want to come right up into your downward dog, and that's cool. We'll meet there in another 3 or 4 breaths. And when you're ready for that downward dog, you can take your hands a little bit farther forward. I usually like my fingers really spread and the pinky fingers just near the edge of the mat. Elbows are slightly bent and hugging together. And it's nice to pedal the heels as you first come into your downward dog, just to kind of massage into it a little bit. And think of trying to work your weight back towards your legs. So the heart is pressing back towards the thighs, but we're keeping that integrity in the shoulders. So the neck should feel relatively relaxed. And then walking the feet to the hands, coming into a standing forward bend. When you're ready, the knees could be bent. You could certainly rest your elbows on bent knees, or you could hang down, or maybe fingertips are on the ground or blocks. And again, here, you can be still, or you can do that little bit of intuitive movement, just rocking the head or bending one knee at a time. I always find that this is such a nice shape for me to kind of allow gravity to lengthen my spine. I feel like I get little kinks along my spine just throughout the day. And when I can invert like this, it just kind of allows everything to find its way back to center or toward. And then when you're ready, let's roll up. So keep in mind, you don't have to roll if that doesn't feel good on your back. You can bend the knees, look forward, and come up with a neutral spine. If it feels safe though, you can lean back into your heels, gather in your belly, and let your head and shoulders be super heavy as you slowly come up towards standing. Then you can collect your shoulders onto your back and just take a moment to find easeful standing. So one way of thinking about that is kind of stacking the bones to that place where you feel like no particular part of your body is working harder than any other. Maybe just leaning forward or back a little, softening the knees, tilting the chin slightly up. Good, and then let's tap into our flow. So go ahead and reach your arms up as you inhale. Exhale, dive over your legs. Lengthen up halfway, draw the heart forward, and then step the right foot behind you and lower down your knee. Inhale, heart and hands rise nice and long through the sides of the waist. And then downward dog as you exhale. Connect the palms, step back. Come into your plank. You can certainly use your knees here. Look forward and lower all the way down for this first one, as long as that feels okay for you. Roll the shoulders back and lift into a little cobra. And then back to downward facing dog as you exhale. Right leg is going to rise to the sky, inhale. And then step that foot through between your hands. You might need to just lean left a little bit, even pull the foot forward. Back knee comes down and rise. Lovely. And then forward fold to the top of your mat. Halfway lift, lengthen. Exhale to melt. And then bend the knees, look forward, rise all the way up. And all the way down again. Just follow your heart to the earth. Good. Halfway lift, draw forward. Left foot steps back. Knee comes down, doesn't have to. Heart and hands rise, inhaling. Beautiful. And then downward facing dog. We'll take our vinyasa, coming forward to plank. Again, feel free to use your knees. You can lower all the way down or try a little push up, down then back up again. And then pull your heart through to upward facing dog. And that has the knees lifted, though you might use them to transition into the pose. And then downward facing dog from there. On your inhale, left leg rises to the sky. And step through. Back knee comes down, heart and hands rise. Forward fold as you exhale. Lengthen. And fold. And the knees rise all the way up. And then bring the hands together at the heart. So that's one Surya Namaskar. Let's do another one. Inhale, rise. And dive. Halfway lift. That's almost a back bend. And then right foot steps back, higher low lunge. Inhale, rise, lengthen. Downward facing dog. Connect the palms, step back. Full vinyasa, coming forward to plank. Lower, all the way or halfway. You can do that little push up there, and then pull through to cobra or up dog. Back to downward facing dog. Right leg rises just as high as it wants to go. And then come on through. Inhale. Beautiful. And then forward fold. Lengthen. And melt. And the knees rise all the way up. You can lean back a little if you want to. And then dive all the way back. Half lift. Really pulling the heart forward, and then left foot steps back. Inhale. Beautiful. And then downward dog. Through your vinyasa. So this could always be a cat and cow as well. The idea here is that we're moving with our breath. You want to do the variation that works for your body. Yeah, shoulders back. Nice, you guys. Down dog. Left leg rises. And come through. Beautiful. Inhale, lengthen. And forward fold. Halfway lift. And melt. Then the knees rise all the way up. Hands to the heart. Let's take a moment just to breathe here, to feel. Good. And let's go through that vinyasa just one more time. I'm going to give you guys a little bit more info on it because there's lots of different ways to do it. So let's reach the arms up once again, inhaling. And then exhale all the way down. Halfway lift, and then just step back to downward dog. So come on back into that shape. So whichever foot you want to do first is fine. And let's just break down the pieces a little bit here. So let's do a couple of rolling planks. So as you inhale, lift your heels, round your spine, ripple forward into plank. And then at the last moment, look forward and try to pull your shoulders onto your back. Then look under you, pull the belly in, and press back to downward dog again. Good, and then do that again. So we're lifting the heels, gathering the belly in, kind of rolling forward. And then looking under and rolling back. Nice. One more time, let's roll forward. And I like this because it helps me really make sure that it's my core that's engaging. Okay, and then we'll take a little push-up. So let's bring the knees down and we'll take the yoga style push-up. So that means the elbows are hugged in close to the chest. The spine is long, we're looking forward. And then you're just lowering down and then coming back up. So think about the lowest you would go is shoulders in line with the elbows. You don't want to go any lower than that. So the elbows are hugging in and you lower and come back up. And let's just do that one more time. And a centimeter push-up makes a massive difference. So don't feel like you have to go that low. Good. Okay, let's try upward facing dog. So I'm going to keep my arms straight. I've got my knees down here. I'm going to pull my heart through, come onto the tops of my feet, and then lift up my kneecaps. And I want to think about pulling my heart through my shoulders, and I'm pushing into the floor to really lift up so the shoulders are down the back. Really nice. You can use your core to go back to downward dog or your knees and press back. Nice work. Let's try putting those all together. Inhale, plank. Exhale, little push-up. Inhale through upward facing dog, or you could be doing cobra here as well. Awesome. And then back to downward facing dog. Take a nice deep breath. Beautiful. And then we're going to come down to our back. So you can do that through plank, lower to your belly, flip over, or you can just use your knees. However you want to come down onto your back. It's fine with me. Okay. Let's check in with the core. Take your middle fingers to your hip points and your thumbs to your low ribs. Inhale, soft, neutral back. And as you exhale, gather your pelvic floor in and up and those 4 points together. So you're really engaging the whole core as best as you can. Try to keep breathing. So it's not going to be as much of a belly breath or a dry breath, even because we're kind of connecting everything in. So just breathing as deeply as you can. You can stay here, or if you want to add on a little, you can interlace the fingers behind the back of the head and curl the shoulder blades up off the mat. Okay, and then next time you inhale, you're just going to lift up your right foot, and as you exhale, put it down. And then the left foot, inhale, and put it down. So the thing that I want you to be focusing on at first here is keeping these 4 points coming together and staying steady, okay? If your head is on the ground, you can have your fingertips still there, just feeling that. And one piece of that is that you want to feel that the belly is drawing in and up. It's not popping forward. Okay, so this is a great place to work as we're kind of getting into that. If you'd like to add on, you can extend your legs up to the sky and move them down one at a time. So this is just going to be more weight basically for the core to be moving through, and we're involving the psoas as well. Okay, and then if you'd like, you can actually add a twist here too. So I'm taking my left elbow towards my right knee as it's close to my face. So you're twisting towards the closer knee, basically. That's switching. And if this feels like, ooh, that hurts my back, or my belly's popping forward, or something's not working for me, you might even be feeling it a little less, because it's a bigger movement. And sometimes the bigger movements are more powerful, but sometimes they also mean we're using the bigger muscles instead of the smaller ones. So it's okay to come back to this one. It's not that one is better or worse, it's just that they have different feelings or different intentions. You want to be with the one that works for you today. And I'm here today, apparently. Try to relax your jaw and breathe. Okay, we're going to try for a couple more breaths. Let's try one more each side if you can. Totally okay if it's feeling like that's enough. Just working to the point where you feel a little bit of fatigue in the muscles. That's where the strengthening is. And then you can relax, draw the knees in, rock from side to side. And if it's comfortable, you could also try a happy baby. So the soles of the feet are up to the sky and you're holding the ankles of the feet and just giving the inner thighs a little space. Sometimes I find that's really nice after core. And then let's release the legs. You can give them a little shake. And then you can take a stretch. So just a really nice long on the floor stretch. The legs go out long. You can interlace the fingers, press the palms up to the sky, and just think of stretching out the belly. All right, and we're going to make our way from here back into downward facing dog. So a couple ways to do that. You can flip to your belly, push up to plank, and then downward dog. So that's one option. Another is rocking and rolling forward and back. And then you can jump or kind of crawl back to downward facing dog. And you can also just kind of roll into it. Whatever way feels comfortable and safe for you is fine. Okay, and then you can stay here, return to child's pose, or let's try one more of those vinyasas. It might feel really nice to take the back bend specifically after working into the core. So plank, little push up, and then pulling through into your back bend and really trying to, it's easy to kind of collapse here. So try to push the floor down so that the heart comes forward and up. And then back to downward dog. Nice, Ty, really good. That's it. All right, and then let's lift the heels, look forward to the hands, bend the knees. If you're comfortable, you can lightly hop or just step up to the top of your mat. Take a halfway lift, melt, and then roll or sweep up, whatever feels most comfortable for your back. I'm gonna roll up personally. So take a couple breaths, no rush. And again, looking for that easeful standing when all the bones are just in alignment to the point where you're not actually having to work at standing. It's just minimal effort. I have such a tendency to kind of over bend my back. And for me, it's really just drawing the weight a little back is where I find a bit more space. Good, okay. So we're going to use a strap or a dowel or a scarf. If you don't have any of those things, don't worry about it, we'll just pretend. But if you do have something like that, just have it kind of close to your mat so that you can grab it when we need it. You won't want it right at, oh, well, actually, if you have a strap, you could put it over your shoulder. It's a little more annoying to do that with the dowel. Okay, and then we're gonna come to that standing. You can have your palms together at your heart to start, lift your toes. Let's spread them apart, reconnect them, and then lean into your left foot. Pick up your right one and hold on to it with your right hand. So we're coming into a little quad stretch. Hug the inner thighs, draw the tailbone down and the knee down, and then push the foot a little bit into the hand into the foot. Okay, so you can stay here or maybe try holding the foot with your other hand as well. So think of holding either side of the foot or even interlacing your fingers, making a little swing for the foot. Okay, and then push the foot a little bit more into the hands and see if the shoulders will come back a little bit. You don't want to overly bend your back here. So it's sort of related to dancer's pose, but it's not quite the same. We're more focused on the quad stretch here, but if you'd like to tip forward a little bit and kick the foot into the hands, you might just see how that feels. Think of the heart coming forward rather than the belly, if that makes sense. Okay, inhale, gently release the hands and step the foot back. We're coming into a high lunge. So I've just got my hands on my hips right now. And then you can grab your strap or dowel. Okay, square the hips forward. Back heel is nice and high, bend both knees. Square the hips, draw the tailbone down, and then you can work that back leg towards straight. The way I like to do a lunge is actually pretty high because I'm trying to find this length back here. Take your strap or dowel in your hands so that your palms face you and the prop is about the level of your forehead. Pull the shoulders down the back, and then you're going to pull the prop apart with your hands, but hug the elbows together at the same time so they stay underneath the wrists. Keep that, and as you inhale, lift up, and as you exhale, lower down. If you don't have a prop, just pretend, okay? Think hands out, elbows in. This is harder than it looks. I like to call this shoulder core because it's really good for getting into those little tiny muscles of the shoulders that help to keep them in alignment and pain-free. But it's hard. Okay, one more here. So good. And then hold the prop in one hand, release your hands, and just let the shoulders kind of fall back. And then you can grab that prop behind you, palms face forward, maybe hips distance apart, you can adjust that. And then pull the prop apart, hug the elbows together, let your chest open, turning your heart open to the sky. Nice deep breaths here. So good. Okay, gently step that back foot in a little bit so that you can land the foot. Toes will point a little bit forward. Front leg straightens. You can keep the prop behind you if you want. If it's bothering you, you can just drop it, no problem. Then square the hips, lift the heart, and then we'll fold into a little hamstring lengthening pose. So the prop and the hands can come up around behind you if you like. And again, if that's too stressful for your hips or your shoulders, just take the hands down. We'll do that together in a moment. Think of drawing the left hip back a little if you can. And you can certainly have a bit of a bend in that front leg. Okay, and if you'd like at this point to release your hands, just do that gently, bring the hands down. And I find when I do that, I just have a bit more control with my leg. So I can draw that left hip back a bit more, squaring the hips. And I just feel the stretch coming in a little bit more. And I'm pressing down into the mound of the left big toe. Neck is long, lower back is long. Nice, inhale, and then downward facing dog. Release back into it. Optionally flow through your vinyasa here. Keeping in mind that vinyasa can mean cat and cow. It doesn't have to mean this full sequence here. Okay, we're gonna meet in downward dog. Send your right leg up to the sky. Roll the hips open and bend the knee. Think of lengthening the knee up to the sky and drawing your left hip back a little. Okay, inhale, and then bring the knee into your chest, and if your shoulders are okay with it, also into plank. And then open the knee to the right, and then send it back to the sky. And do that 2 more times. So the knee comes in, optionally shoulders over the wrist. You can stay in downward dog for this. Knee opens to the right, and then back up to the sky. 1 more time. I want you to feel your outer glute. A little bit of core there too, for sure. And then step your foot forward. Come into warrior 2. So spin the back heel down, reach the arms up and open to the sides. I'm just going to turn around so I'm still facing you. So your knee is over your ankle. Tailbone is long. Okay, notice what's going on with your pelvis. And see if you can lower your back hip a little. So the bowl of the pelvis is relatively level with the earth. Okay, I really like to do this with palms up. And then the thumbs stretch back slightly until I feel an opening in my chest. Make sure your knee is over your ankle. There's a little bit of pressing the knee back to ensure that. Okay, 1 more deep breath here. And then straighten that front leg. We're coming into triangle. You may or may not need to shorten your stance just a little bit. Keep a bit of a bend in the knee and allow your hips to tilt forward and down so that your right hip crease is nice and deep. And then as you tip forward, you're not compromising your knee. So we're going to keep that, but there's a little bit of lengthening the tailbone and a slight twist that comes in through the spine. So your chest ends up in line roughly with that bottom leg. Reach the arm up to the sky, shoulders onto the back, and maybe flex your hand up to the ceiling like you're holding it up. You'll just get a little bit of an extra forearm stretch there. Good. So Ty, it looks like you could have a bit of a longer stance between your feet. Yeah, and then see how it feels to have the leg just a bit straighter. Yeah, there you go. And maybe the hand below the knee. There you go. Does that feel okay? Yeah, okay, awesome. Okay, from here, look down for balance. You might need to lift your chest up a little bit. We're gonna try to float the bottom hand, so we're not using the hand on the leg. So you're gonna have to use your obliques to support you, and you might need to lift your chest up higher to do that. See how that feels. Try to get a nice straight line for the spine. Okay, and then look just a little bit ahead of you. You might want to block for this if you have one. Mine are kind of where I want them, roughly. I'm going to bend that front leg, tip forward, and see if I can come into a little, I often think of this as like I'm a little teapot pose. It's like tipping forward the spout, okay? So you want to get the hand just ahead of the foot, about torso's distance, and I like the hand just in line with the pinky toe, so slightly open. It's the same alignment as triangle, you're just on one foot, okay? So think of really lifting the chest up nice and high, and that's where the block comes in handy. You don't necessarily need a block, it's just a bit easier to do it with. And we're playing with a bit of balance here. So it helps me a lot to look at the floor. You absolutely can look to the side. I just always fall over when I look to the side. It's a bit easier to stay balanced when we're looking down. So just experiment with that. If you want to challenge yourself a bit, you can definitely look to the side. Keep your back foot really active. Imagine kind of plugging it in. Yeah, nice. And you might experiment with bending your extended leg and just see what happens when you do that. Some of you might be able to easily grab it. Don't worry about that too much right now. Okay. And then we'll straighten the leg, look down, square the hips, and gently release out of the pose, both feet beside each other. Halfway lift and fold. And then we'll roll up nice and easy. Or sweep if you prefer, no problem. Again, finding that where are my bones most at ease? Returning to the breath, how you're feeling the energy flowing through you today. Beautiful. Okay. Bring your hands together to start. Lean into your right foot. Lift the toes, spread them apart, reconnect them. Bend the left leg, hold on to it with the left hand. Okay, so make sure you're not locking the standing leg. There's a little bit of a bend there. Hug the knees together, point that left knee down, tailbone down, and maybe you're experimenting with holding the foot with both hands and allowing the shoulders to come back, kicking the foot a bit into the hand. So I'm hoping this is mostly a quad stretch. But you might feel a bit of chest opening here as well. And some of you might find that you want to just experiment with tipping forward a little bit more. It's kind of like dancers, a little more symmetrical. Probably won't go as deep into it. Challenging our balance, so looking at something steady that's not moving, just a single point. And then step back, nice and easy. Grab your scarf, strap, belt, dowel, nothing, whatever you got. Okay, bend your back leg. So both knees are a bit bent. Square the hips, tailbone lengthens, then work the back leg towards straight. I like the heel lifted really high. So my butt is actually pretty high. Sometimes you see lunges that are way lower. Works for me to be up quite high. And then take your strap for head level, pull it apart, but hug the elbows together, shoulders down the back. Inhale, lift any amount. It doesn't matter how far you go. Exhale and lower. Inhale and lift. Exhale and lower. This one always makes me break a sweat, just immediately. Doesn't look hard, but man, there's a lot going on with this one. Try to keep your jaw relaxed. One more. So good. Release the hands, just holding the prop in one hand for a moment, noticing, for me, there's often just this feeling of like, the shoulders kind of come back a bit. And then we can clasp that prop behind us, palms face forward. Hugging the elbows together, go ahead and lift your heart, pulling the strap apart, allowing the elbows to hug together, maybe looking up to the sky. So for this one, it's a little harder to keep the tailbone going down and the chest lifting at the same time. So I just want you to think about really the energy going up from the sternum, not the belly going forward, right? So think long and lifted, but it's okay to back bend a little bit. That is what we're doing. Keep that back leg nice and steady. Shoulders down. So good. Okay, gently ease off, step that back foot in a little bit so that the heel can land. The toes are a little bit turned out and feet would be about hips distance apart. Front leg is straight, but not locked. So there's just that little micro bend there, maybe more than a micro bend. Lift the heart and then again, fold down and just see how far you want to go. So this should feel like a stretch in the back of your leg, not your lower back. Okay, if your lower back is complaining, put your hands down on blocks or the floor. If it feels good to keep your hands here, you can. Press into the ball of your right big toe. Nice. And think of sticking your butt out a little. That will give your lower back a bit more space. Yeah. Nice, you guys. And then gently release your hands if you haven't, and that might give you a little bit more control, a little more space. Yeah. Good. And then press the outer right hip back. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and a little trick if you don't have blocks and the floor is not accessible, you can put your hands up really high on the top of your thigh. Make sure you keep the knee bent, but you can kind of work that back there, heart forward, and you should get a pretty juicy stretch here without actually having to touch the floor. A little trade secret. Good. Inhale, and then all the way back to downward dog. Optionally, go ahead and take your vinyasa. You can absolutely skip it. Child's pose is a nice option. And so is cat and cow. There's so many ways to do vinyasa. Beautiful. Okay. When you're ready, left leg goes up to the sky on an inhale. You can open it up. So the hip stack, the knee lengthens. And draw your right hip just a little bit back. Okay, inhale, bring the knee in towards your chest. Optionally, shoulders come forward too. Knee opens to the left. That's the part I'm interested in. Then the knee goes up to the sky. 2 more times. Knee comes in and open and up. Last one. And then step through. Warrior 2, spin that back heel down, rise up. So in Warrior 2, we want the front heel in line with the back arch. So it's a nice narrow stance because the hips are mostly open to the side. Not 100% because that will torque your knee, but like 80, 90%, depending on your body. Knee over the ankle, tailbone is long, pelvis is level-ish. So you'll lower the back hip a bit. And if it felt good for you before, try palms up. Elbows could be a little bent. And we're just hugging slightly back. Beautiful. And then triangle. So we'll straighten the front leg, tip forward a little bit. Back foot might need to step in a little bit. You can kind of see how that goes for your body. Again, everybody's different. Place the hand really lightly. It could be above or below the knee. And again, there's a little bit of a twist of the ribs. And that top palm, you could be pressing the palm up towards the sky and just adding a little bit of stretch for the forearm there. I know this is a lot to think about. So come back to your breath, noticing how you're feeling in your body. You can circle that top hand. And then see how it feels to lighten up on the bottom hand or even lift it right up. So notice where is that place where your spine is quite level. You're using a little bit of a fair amount of your obliques to sort of hold you up here, but you don't have to be super low down. And then let's take that into a little bit of a balance. So bending into the front leg, you can have your back hand on your hip if that helps. Maybe there's a block there to support you. Maybe not, okay? So you can have the fingertips on the floor, it's just a bit harder. So good, you guys, that's awesome, Emily. Yeah, and then just like with triangle, there's a slight tilt of the chest open to the sky. Yeah, so good. Nice, back foot is flexed, nice and active, it's really part of the team. Yeah, flexed or pointed, just active. Beautiful. And if you want a challenge, you can look to the side. I always topple over when I look to the side. And then maybe we're gonna bend the leg and just see how that feels. You could reach for it. Some of you are pretty comfortable there, but don't worry. We'll talk about that in a sec. And then we'll gently straighten the leg, look down, square the hips, come on out of it. Halfway lift and melt. And then let's again stand up as slow as you want to go. So rolling is great. Sweeping works too. Finding where the bones are most at ease. Okay, so let's talk about Ardha Chandrasana Chapasana. So half moon pose with hip opening variation. So again, if you have a block, it's really handy. An upside down tall Tupperware would work pretty well for this as well. Again, you don't necessarily have to have a block. It's just a bit easier if you do. So one way that I really like to come into this is through triangle for sure, but it's also nice to do it from standing, where we kind of plug everything in. I'm holding the block in my hand, I'm leaning left, and I'm gonna open the hips and just come into it from here. Okay, and then we can try this hip opening variation. So feel free to ignore me if this doesn't work for you, but you could bend the leg, reach back and hold on to it, or bring the knee into the chest, find the knee, then the ankle or foot, and then open up. That works so much better for some people. And then you're just pushing the foot into the hand and opening the heart into this kind of sideways dancer's pose. And then we gently release the leg. And the way that I like to come back up is just to standing. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so let's give that a try. So some of you are doing that with me. Some of you may have been just watching. So I'm going to show the other side, but just start wherever you're comfortable starting, and don't be afraid to unmute and ask if you have a question, okay? So I'm holding the block in my right hand now, plugging everything in. So think of everything being sort of connected like a dipping bird, leaning right. So the only thing that's hinging is really your standing hip, yeah? I'm gonna tip down, open up. And again, especially if you're doing the balance, start with looking at the ground. It's a bit easier to balance if you do that. This pose is challenging enough. Don't feel like you need to add on to it unless you want to. You can bend the leg, reach for the foot. If the foot feels like you don't know where it is, you can bring the knee in first. Start with the knee, slide the hand down the shin to the foot, and then find the pose from there. Not sure exactly why, but I adore this pose. I find it feels so good in my body. Just nice on my quad and lower back, I guess. Yeah. And then come on up through standing if you can. Nice work. Good. And if you're coming to the second side now, you can do that. If you want to try it again, you can, or just take a moment to stand and just kind of receive the work that we've done so far. We'll meet back up in a moment. Yeah, you're doing great, Emily. So good. And we're kind of letting the shoulders come back. Beautiful. Okay. So when that is complete for you, when you've done both sides to a satisfying degree, let's make our way into, I want to add one more sort of fun opening shape. We've sort of been preparing for it even as we've been focusing on something else. If you have a wall that you can use, go ahead and bring your mat to the wall. If you don't worry about it. We can do a wall-less version of this, but we'll come down onto our hands and our knees. So if you're standing here, you can reach the arms up and dive. If you've got a lot of energy to work with here, feel free to add a vinyasa, probably our last one. Okay, and then let's come down to our hands and our knees. So we're going to play with forearm stand today. We've been doing some prep in the shoulders, and we've got some length in the parts of the legs that we need for forearm stand. If you have a block, then the variation is to hold the block in between the L's of your hands like this. And then you kind of press into it. So your palms will be down on the ground and you have something to kind of push into, which just helps the shoulders, okay? So we can bring that up to the wall. I'll show sideways first. I'm not proficient enough at this to do it without a wall myself, but I can show the prep, which we can all do. So the elbows are down and they're pretty narrow because they will roll out a little. And I've got that block between the L's of my hands. I'm just going to take a moment to roll the shoulders back. I'm just going to take downward dog, okay? And then walk the feet in a little bit. So shoulders are over the elbows and we're looking just down between the elbows, okay? And this is called dolphin downward dog, and it's a beautiful pose for shoulder health, strength, and flexibility, okay? And then you can lift a leg, lift the other leg, so that's kind of if you don't have a wall. And I'll just show the pose on my little side wall over here for those of you that want to try it. I mean, it's not too complicated. It's just a little kick. It's a gentle kick. There you go. And the Sanskrit name for this pose is Pincha Mayurasana, which means the peacock feather pose. And so if you think about a feather, it's a little curved. It's not a perfect straight line like headstand. It's just ever so slightly a back bend. And as when we were doing these kind of lunging openings, think of that, like the heart is moving towards the ground, not that we're bowing out with the belly, the lower back, but the sternum bone is kind of opening towards the earth, okay? So that's what we're playing with. And to come up, I mean, it's really a bit of the leap of faith here. It's a little gentle kick, and then trying to find that balance, heart to the earth, long back, squeezing the legs together. I like to point the toes and press into the block. So the toes would be in line with the center of the square. So slightly behind you, which is why I need a wall. Because in finding my balance, I would probably fall over. Yeah, so again, if you don't have a wall, just feel free to try sort of 1 foot at a time. See how that feels. And don't be afraid to ask a question as well. You have one. Okay, we'll just take a couple more breaths to play with this. I know some of you are enjoying it. Some of you love your inversion. Some of you are like, oh God, when will this be over? We'll meet in a child's pose. So feel free to go there now or take your last couple breaths. I'm just gonna kick with the other leg. I can remember which one. And I find that really the block is a big part of it, really pushing into the block. And the elbows. It's really finding your foundation. Okay, so when you're ready, you can come into that child's pose that we started with the hands by the hips, which is sometimes called embryo pose. It's like a little kind of release for the shoulders, which I just love after forearm stand. And you don't need your ujjayi breath here in particular. Feel free to sigh or just take a nice relaxed belly breath. And then we'll find our way onto our backs. So you can slide to your belly and flip over, or you can come to a seat and roll your legs over. And I actually want to fit in shoulder stand today, which we don't always have time for, but I'm going to offer it. Don't worry, you don't have to do shoulder stand. It's not for everyone. So if you are not wanting to invert that much today, if you've got some neck and shoulder stuff, or shoulder stand just doesn't appeal to you, or if you don't like it, what you can do instead is Viparita Karani, or legs up the wall, and you can do that with or without a wall. So here I've got a little just block underneath my hips, and the legs can be elevated. So this is like 95% of the benefits of shoulder stand right here. Okay, you don't have to go all the way up into it. If you want to take shoulder stand, I'll talk you through it, but if you need to look first, because it's not safe to move your head around once you're in the pose, okay? So I'll just show it, and you can follow me with your ears or with your eyes, but don't look while you're also trying to get into it. So elbows by the ribs, kind of like we would for bridge, hugging those shoulders together. The legs go up and there's a little swing. Catch your lower back. Okay, and then you walk the hands up the back, snuggle those shoulders together as best as you can, and try to straighten out. Back of the head presses into the mat. Okay, so go ahead and try that if you've been watching. And again, if you're getting red lights, if something's not feeling good, just bring your butt back down to the earth. Awesome. And then you can come into plow if you like. So the feet are coming over the head towards the earth. And if the feet comfortably touch, you can interlace your fingers and use the length of your arms to support you. If the feet are floating though, just keep your hands on your back. And if you're doing the non-shoulder stand variation with me, you can stay exactly where you are, or you can just hug your legs in towards you a little bit. So you get that nice stretch along the back line without having to go so intensely into it. Whoops. So I forget what this one is called. It's like a half plow, just bringing the legs in a bit. Beautiful. And then when you're ready, we'll gently roll down. So you can have your hands on your lower back just to support you as you roll down. And take a moment to lay on your back. You could have the legs flopped out or soles of the feet together, knees open wide, whatever's comfortable. Just some nice deep belly breaths. Okay, and then feet on the floor. We'll take a little thread the needle just to release the hips. So you can take the left ankle onto your right thigh and stay there, or you can hold on to the back of the right leg and draw it in. Maybe a little rock from side to side. Thread the needle is a very popular pose. It's really good for lots of different things. Not for everybody every day, but it's such a nice one for a lot of reasons. So you can have that foot flexed if you like. I find if I lean my legs a bit to the right, it's just that little bit juicier for me. And then we can release that. You can extend the legs and give them a little shake. And then switch sides, taking the right ankle onto the left thigh, holding onto the back of the left thigh if appropriate. Some of us keep the foot on the floor. Again, you can rock a little bit, and that might be really slow, just kind of looking for where is the stretch that your body is needing today. Keep both feet flexed, and that just helps to keep the stretch out of the knee. Make sure it goes into the hip. And again, I find if I go a little left with the legs, it's like, oh yeah, right into that hip. If I go right, it's not bad. It's just I feel it in my inner thigh more, and I just want this in my outer hip a bit more today. Good. And then you can gently release. Again, I just like to shake my legs up to the sky. I find that feels so nice. And then we're going to close with one of my favorite poses, fish. Really nice after shoulder stand, just a final way of opening the chest and throat. So you're laying on your back. You can sit on your hands, palms down, and then hug the shoulders together and lengthen your arms. So I'm sitting on my forearms. It's going to depend on how long your arms are, but you're going to come up probably a bit higher there. And then straighten the legs out on the mat, squeeze them together, push into the elbows, lift the chest and come lightly onto the top of your head. Keep pushing into the elbows down and apart so there's very little weight on your head. It could even be floating, it doesn't have to be. Just finding that nice opening for the throat. And if you want, you can stick your tongue out and make a sound. Stretch your jaw. Gently chin into chest when you're ready to come down. Release the hands, release the legs, and we're in Shavasana. So feel free to just flop out if that works for you. You can also adjust your Shavasana however you like it. So props underneath the knees or covering yourself with a blanket, putting on your layers, whatever you need for your Shavasana. And we'll just take a few moments to rest and receive the work that we've done today in alignment with the energy that we have, that we're feeling today. Just letting that be exactly what it is. A moment to notice how you're feeling in your body right now, how the breath is flowing through you. If you're feeling like you'd like to stay a little bit longer, that's totally welcome. Otherwise, we can begin to wiggle the toes and the fingers, rock the head from side to side, and reach your arms up over your head and stretch out long through your toes. Gather in the knees and roll to one side. You can place your hands together in front of your heart or over top, or wherever feels right for you. And take a moment to bow your mind to your hands, just honoring and acknowledging whatever it took for you to get here to your practice today. Honoring and acknowledging the long and complex lineage of teachers that is with us in our practice. And honoring the land that we practice on, wherever that may be in the world. Thank you for sharing the practice with me today.